walk down this street. And we would have to walk over people because the poor people were just there in the street. And she kept asking questions like little kids do, you know, why are they sleeping in the street, and on and on and on. So we finally got her to understand the concept that they didn't have very much money, so that they couldn't afford to stay in the hotel. So she got that. And then one day, my husband and I, we would take turns at the conference, and then we would take her back to the hotel for her afternoon nap. And so I took her back to the hotel, and we were going to sit outside there at the restaurant of the hotel and have some lunch before taking her up for her nap. And so it was just the two of us sitting there, and she was this real blonde, curly-headed, blue-eyed kid. And this man comes up to me, and he has a small child, about the same age, in her little dress, cute as a bug. He wants me to buy her. And he told me that it would be a really good thing, because then I could have one white one and one brown one. But he was trying to sell his child because he couldn't afford to take care of her. And because she was a female, he wanted to get rid of her. It was a very creepy feeling. You know? And again, morally, what do? Do I walk away? The thought of buying a person was just ick, you know. But morally, what was the right thing to do? I don't know, because if I walk away from that child, who knows what's going to happen to her? Who knows what did happen to her? You know, what about the creep who did actually buy her? You know, I don't know the answer. I just don't know. Chile, we lived there for a while, and similar kind of thing in that we went to a Habitat for Humanity. And Habitat, if you're familiar with that organization, it's the neighborhood that they go to, the people living in the neighborhood, they're the ones who decide which family in the neighborhood is in most need. And then they all, as a neighborhood, they vote as to who gets this house. And so this family, we go there. There were probably about 12 of us teachers who all went one year. And it was in the northern part of Chile, not far from the Atacama Desert. And it's very rocky, very hilly, and that there. In the ground, because it is close to the desert, it's kind of hard to dig in. So we go there, and there's this family, and they have their, you know, the cows and the chickens and everything live in the house with them, so that nobody will steal them. They have just a dirt floor and all that. It's just in Chile, they refer to it as tetra houses. You know, when you go to the City Mart and you buy the boxes of the juice and the milk and that, in Chile they refer to those as Tetra Paks. And to recycle those, and we did this at the school all the time, nobody ever threw their juice boxes away or anything. You'd put them in the recycling bin, and the company would come, and they pull them apart and wash them, and then you could use those to build houses with. And they were quite sturdy, and would help keep the rain out and all that. So there were a lot of Tetra houses around that. Our job was to dig the foundation so that they could pour the concrete to build the house on top of it. But there were no tools. There were no shovels or anything like that. There was a mallet. You know, when I say mallet, you know what I mean by mallet? It's like a hammer on steroids. And it has this big rubber end to it. But every time you would try to use it, the end of it would fall off. So there was no way to really tape it on or anything like that. So they had no tools. And they had this big, long metal rod, and we first had to pull out all the rocks that were in the ground. Now that's hard work, especially when their rocks are like this big, and you don't know how far they are in the ground. So you just got to keep digging and digging and digging until you get to the bottom of the rock, and so that then you can pull it out. But all we had were these long metal sticks. So we're standing there and you just keep hitting the ground, and it's a very slow process. And every now and then you hit part of the rock, but again, it's slow, slow, slow. So again, all of us Westerners who are used to having efficient ways and quick ways of getting things done, we stop and we're standing, we're talking about, well, what else can we do? Can we go to the store? Can we get a jackhammer to break up these rocks to make it easier? And the whole time we're standing there chit-chatting, the guy who we're building the house for, he sits down, and he sits down, and he's got the rock is right here, and so here he is, you know, and he's got that mallet that doesn't work, and he's got a railroad spike. You know what a railroad spike is? It's like a really big nail, but it's this big around that they use to put in railroad ties. So he's got one of those in this mallet. So he's sitting there, and he's just kind of mumbling to himself, and he hits the rock, the mallet falls off, he puts it back on, hits the rock again, the mallet falls, and he did this for hours. He would start at 6 in the morning, and he wouldn't stop until it got dark, and he just kept doing this, and kept doing this. And at night, he would build a fire on top of the rock, and leave it like that, so then the next morning, it would be easier for the rock to crack when he would hit it. He sat with this one rock, because it was right in the way. The house was going to be this square house, and the rock was right there in the corner, so we couldn't do any more of the foundation until we got this rock out of the way. The man sat there for a week doing this. And the last day, he finally breaks up that rock enough that we can get it out of there. And at that time, our Spanish kind of sucked, so we really couldn't communicate with him very well. But afterwards, we said, you know, why did you sit there and just keep doing that? Wasn't that so frustrating? Because every time you have to put the mallet back together. And he just looked at us and said, well, if I don't do it, who will? I have to have a home for my family. And if I don't do it, who will? And then we felt like real idiots because we wasted our time trying to figure out the easy way to do it rather than just getting down there and doing it and getting the job taken care of. And they had nothing really in their house, but they were so happy that there were people there to help them build this house. They would invite us in for lunch. And you know that they didn't have enough money to feed all of us, make a meal for us. So everybody else in the neighborhood would bring the food, and we would share plates. The 12 of us, we would, because they didn't have enough plates or silverware for everybody. So we would take turns eating, and we just kept using the same plate. Oh, they had, I think, 3 plates. We just kept using the same plates over and over and the same silverware, which I guess is not very hygienic. But we didn't want them to feel bad that there was no way all 12 of us were going to fit inside their little Tetra house, and there was no way they would be able to give us all a plate to eat off of, nor there was no way they were ever going to have enough food to feed that many people every day. So we would all eat in shifts, and we would agree ahead of time, okay, who was going to eat first that day, and who would eat last, and who kind of then, in the course of that, wouldn't eat. You know, we would put something in our backpack, and that's what we would eat that day, so that they wouldn't know and wouldn't have to feel bad about it or anything like that. But I learned more from that man, sitting there watching him hit that rock for a week and talk about perseverance and never giving up. I was just amazed. He's my role model. And finally then, about 4 months later, the Habitat people, they sent us a picture, the house was done.